All right, brother Pinchback. Just give your name and a quick bio of yourself and your family.
All right. All right. Um, my name is Eddie W. Pinchback, and I emphasize that I add that W because I actually have a half brother, believe it or not, named Eddie Lee Pinchback with an L. And at some point in our lives, I hope we don't get it confused. But hey, I'm blessed to have 78 years in this world. My wife's name's Janice. We've been married almost 52 years. We have two daughters, Adrian and Stephanie. One's 47 and the other one's 43. The youngest one's actually a Delta out of Texas A&M. They're both professionals. I've got two grandsons. One's 15, one's 12. I graduated from high school in Lockhart, Texas, which is, I think most of people know is probably the barbecue capital of Texas. In fact, my high school was Carver High School. I played football and I played baseball. In fact, my high school halfback is probably not a lot of folks know it was what actually held the NFL rushing record at one time. I'm a graduate of both St. Philip's College, where I was president of class in 1964, and I eventually graduated with my BS degree from Texas State University, which was formerly Southwest Texas State University in 1974. I was drafted, I joined the police department in 1965 here in San Antonio, and I was actually drafted off the police department in 1966, and I voluntarily went to the Air Force, where I spent 3 years, 11 months, 26 days, and I can't complain about not one day. It was a good experience, and had to do a little traveling, but all in all, it was a great experience. I came back from the Air Force to the San Antonio Police Department in 1970, and I eventually did 31 years at the San Antonio Police Department, and I essentially worked all over the police department. Probably the bulk of the time as a detective in the homicide division, and eventually as a supervisor in the homicide division. I also worked internal affairs and research and planning in a lot of those areas. And after I retired in 1997, and truly I'm blessed to be retired 25 years from the police department, because I'll be quite honest with you, not a lot of us retirees from the police department have lived that long. But after I retired, I was the director of security for State Public Service, the utility company in San Antonio. And that's the short version of my bio.
All right. Got a lot in the bio.
All right.
All right. Next thing, what are you most proud of in your life about being a father?
That being a father, I guess the most thing that I'm most proud of is the fact that with two girls, we were always able to communicate. And when I say communicate, communication goes both ways. And for my part, it required a lot of listening. By being able to talk to my children, we were in constant communication, and I learned a lot from them, and I believe that they learned a lot from me. In fact, that communication still exists today. In fact, as old as my children are, we still talk at least once a day, most days, unless they are out of the state, out of the country or otherwise. And they've passed that on to their children. I guess the other thing is that I brought them up as God-fearing people, which I think is very important. And they are persons of faith, and as an adult, they still carry that tradition on. And whether they were in college or where they are, it seems to me, well, it doesn't seem, but the fact is that it seems like the first place they go after they find a place to live to find them a church. And they've passed that on to their children. And I'm so proud of my grandsons because now, whenever we are either there or they are here, they all live in Houston. We always do a prayer before we leave or they leave or whatever. And now my 12-year-old grandson and a 15-year-old, they actually do the prayer for traveling grace. And it's just not empty words. They are sincere and they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's something to be proud about.
You got about it.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is: Have you ever had to choose sides between your wife and kid, and how did you resolve that?
Yeah, and I know you got a young one, and yeah, you have that phenomenon, or so those decisions to make, and they change as you get older. Trust me. When we were all younger and the children were younger, it probably goes without saying that I honestly had to decide, make decisions, and be on my wife's side. But quite honestly, as we've gotten older, and listened more, and my daughters have become more in tune to affairs of the world, I listen to them more, and my wife listens to them more. And a lot of times now, I side with my daughters over my wife simply because my wife makes a lot of decisions based on emotions or personal feelings, whereas my daughters, they put some thought into things, and a lot of it honestly has to do with where we're going to take a vacation, where we're going to travel to, where we're going to go to dinner, who we're going to visit, those kind of decisions, not any, really life-changing decisions. But yeah, it changes over time. And I guess, to be honest with you, I choose to live life and not let life live me. And so it's anyway, that's my answer.
Okay. Okay. So, what is your biggest life lesson as a father and a husband?
Well, I didn't hear the question.
They say, what was your biggest life lesson as being a father and a husband?
Oh, the biggest life lesson of being a father and a husband.
Yes, sir.
Um, I think that the biggest life lesson that I think, in all that is being humble, um, being devoted to a cause, um, and I guess the part of being humble is not being stubborn and hard-headed, but willing to change your mind. And sometimes it may not be easy, but um, I've lived long enough. Let me put it that way. I've lived long enough to know that I'm not always right. I've lived long enough to know that I made a ton of mistakes. And um, uh, I choose to live life and not let life live me. One of the things that I've learned, I grew up poor, honestly, dirt poor, and I guess to provide some safety and security and those type of things for our family, I always thought about saving until it dawned on me, and I think this is probably one of the conversations that I had with my daughters, is that what are you saving for? You don't let money use you, you use money. And so that's sort of my uh, uh, mantra for a living now is I don't let things use me, I use them. And I think that's a life lesson for anybody is not be, let yourself be caught up. As a matter of fact, and I mentioned it, one of the things that we are trying to do now is downsize. We've saved so many things around here. I've got a lot of antiques that honestly today I don't know what I'm going to do with, because my daughters don't want them, my grandchildren don't want them. I don't know if anybody else in my family, and either one of our families want them. I actually have some historical documents here that nobody wants. So again, live life, don't let life live you.
Yeah, that's a good little life lesson. Okay, so you explained in your career that you was a police officer and a detective, and how did your make a decision making as a father?
Well, I can tell you this. Well, first off, let me share something with you. I don't know if you ever heard that. You guys are sort of young, but in the old days, they said there was a belief that police officers' children and preachers' children were some of the worst in the community. So I was always aware of that. But as a police officer, I tried to be protective of my children, my family, but not only my children, but other people, people in the community, people in my church, and but I try not to be overprotective. You see, as a law enforcement officer, you see some of the worst in society, and I've always been of the attitude that the police officer, being a police officer, or law enforcement officer, is a job. It is not my life, and I've always made the decision that I was going to leave that job at home. I mean, leave that job at the office and not bring it home with me. In fact, I have neighbors who came into the neighborhood after I was in plain clothes. They said that for many years they didn't know what I did. They had no idea I was a police officer. And I said, oh, you didn't? Why you said, well, you don't act like a police officer? Well, I knew, how is a police officer supposed to act? Well, you don't act like one. So I don't know if that's positive or negative, but yeah, I tried to steer my children away from places and people that were going to cause them problems. But not only my children, but your children or anybody else's children, because I was aware of a lot of things that were going on in the community that the public just really wasn't aware of. And I accepted that as my responsibility to sort of look out for folks. And in some way, I probably still do that. All right.
Okay. So what advice would you give husbands?
Well, let me put it this way. Being a parent or a father or mother or whatever, being a parent certainly says it's an experiment, but you only get one shot at it. Yeah, you may have several children, but they're all going to be different. So my advice would be, first off, to be a human, and for us men to be a man, to be devoted, to be humble, to listen, cherish the time with your family. And shine the dog. Nobody can train you. Yeah, you can go to these classes and you get advice from your parents and your relatives and your friends and your neighbors. But it's in the end, it's going to be between you and your child. And so just practice being patient and cherish the time with your family. Hey, be flexible. I guess that's probably a good thing. And be protective. Somebody took care of you, and I think that's where you learn from your life lessons, because the only lesson about life that we all have is the lesson of the life that we've lived, and from those people who have been were a part or are a part of our lives, that have given us advice and counseling and provided some direction for us. And so from that perspective, or from that idea, uh, that's how I believe that young fathers and young husbands, should treat their families.
Okay,
I
okay.
wasn't too long and too convoluted.
You all right? You all right? One last question. Being one of the first members of this committee, how do you feel about the committee thus far? And what would you like to see? The
Well, let me tell you something. Now, I'm always straight up. I was excited about this committee when it first started, but life has some things that you're not prepared for, and we've had some health issues going on in my family. But God puts us all in a place where He wants us to be, whether we know it or not. And the leadership and the guys that the folks have been involved in this committee, man, I tell you what, from my perspective, they were all God sent. Ice and his son have been excellent leaders, and I'm aware that they are talking about stepping down, but for whoever it is that's going to step into their place, know that they got some big shoes to fill, because these guys have done an excellent job. Everybody that's been involved has done an excellent job, and well, I mean, you see the recognition that you get in the community, and so I just hope and pray sincerely that whoever steps in and takes over this fatherhood initiative will be as bright and as available and follow in these guys' footsteps and be the best that they can be.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Pinchback. Those are all the questions that I have. Jazz, you got anything?
No, sir. The last question, one of the things that I like. All good, bro. All the advice.
All right, young man. I'm proud of y'all, and continue to make us proud.
All right, what's up, brother Pinchback? And like I say, man, just prayers for you and the wife, man. I hope God continue to give you the strength, to take care of the field.
Hey, he's been doing it all these days, and hey, ain't no doubt in my mind he's gonna keep it up. I'm a true believer.
Right.
I'm a true believer, and hey, for somebody who has made it all these years, and if you one of these days I get an opportunity, I'll just tell you about some of the things that I've seen, and how I made it through. Ain't nobody but God.
I understand that nobody but God.
No, ain't nobody but God. Nobody could have brought me through it but God. Hey, I've been shot at. I've been in some situations where if God hadn't been on my side and I had not been wise enough, and I would have been foolish, I wouldn't be here today. I mean, I could be accused of some things that, thank God, he gave me wisdom, not to, hey, don't fall for the okie doke.